But I wonder how everybody feels about this piece of breaking news that we heard in the last 24 hours. A lot of disappointment on social media with this, that the NCAA has decided officially to expand the NCAA tournament. The field of 64, nope, that's gone. The field of 68, no, that's gone too. The basketball tournaments are going to 76 teams, on track for this coming NCAA tournament. I know it's about a year from now in March, but just a formality at this point. 76 teams in the NCAA tournament. When are they going to start this thing? The weekend before the actual tournament? I don't know, but days of traditional sports, I guess we could just eliminate. All right, New York Knicks came up big in the NBA playoffs last night. 3-2, they take the lead on the Atlanta Hawks. The game was not close. Brunson was a monster. He had 39 points, 8 assists. Jalen Johnson had 18. Felt like Atlanta, honestly, sleepwalking through this one, and they're going to get back to Atlanta, see if they can win the next one, and then who knows what happens in Game 7. But a lot of adversity for the Knicks, and this series is, going longer than some people thought. Here's Mike Brown on them coming back early and then blowing the Hawks out late.
To go from the 2 one-point losses to these 2 pretty decisive victories, just what does it tell you about your team's response to adversity?
They're resilient, and we talked about it throughout the course of the year. You got to go through some adversity throughout the course of the year to see what you're made of as a group, see how you're going to respond, and you just got to keep fighting. And our guys have been through a lot so far this year, and they continue to go through it, but they've been through it as a group, and there's nothing that will deter the group. They're a veteran group that knows what they want and how to go get it, no matter what's in front of them.
Well, they did what they were supposed to do, protecting home court, and we were never, their defense never really let us establish, consistently how we need to play to beat them. And we have to be more committed to it's really like imposing your will.
All right, so we'll see what happens coming up in Atlanta this weekend. Meanwhile, the Philadelphia 76ers, they're looking forward to playing this weekend as well. That's right. They beat the Celtics last night, 113-97, one of the best playoff performances we've ever seen from Joel Embiid. He came up big, 33 points, 8 assists, and 4 rebounds.
What did it take to really dig deep and get this one done tonight?
Obviously, you don't want to go home, so got to do whatever it takes. I thought defensively we did a much better job, especially not overhelping as we did last game. And then offensively becomes a little easier when you're making shots. We definitely made more shots than we did last game, so that's a good combination when you want to win a basketball game.
You guys have been in every one of these situations. Just your thoughts on heading now to Philly to try to close it out as well.
Yeah, just trying to find a rhythm and play through the physicality. It's playoff basketball, so, got to play through the physicality. So, tonight I feel like they shot the ball better than us, which is doesn't happen a lot, but they shot the ball from 3 better than us, and, we just gotta respond. It's the playoffs.
All right, we'll see if the Celtics can do that this weekend. Meanwhile, the Spurs last night took care of their business and closed out their series with the Portland Trail Blazers. Another game not particularly close, 114-95. Victor Wembanyama, 17 points, 14 rebounds, 6 blocks. The Spurs will face the winner of the Timberwolves and Nuggets series. So very big win for Mitch Johnson and company. And the Blazers really nothing to hang their head over, but certainly here are the Spurs on moving on.
What have you kind of grown over these last series with your first experience in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think, all the things that are discussed regarding the playoffs are real, obviously. The physicality, the competitiveness, every single possession is survival. And I think when you play a team, every single day that you play a game, it comes a lot less of cute strategy. And I think there's a lot of ways that I can continue to help these guys more than I did these 5 games, but it was a whole lot of fun, and they did a great job. And I was just really pleased with their competitive response again against a team that I think has been as competitive and as physical as we've seen all year. And not just during the playoffs, that was during the regular season as well.
Proud of them the whole year. Start to remember the whole season and what we went through, and just, again, we compete every night for the most part, and that's what we are proud of.
All right, NBA playoffs continuing tonight. We'll get a preview coming up with Daniel Collins in just a few minutes. Let's get to some baseball here. Don Mattingly's first official game as interim manager of the Phillies is in the books, and it's a win, 7-0. The Phillies blow out the Giants and also hold them to 2 hits. Jesus Luzardo has had a tough season, was great yesterday. 7 innings pitched and 8 strikeouts. Don Mattingly, after the game, very emotional on being back in the skipper seat and picking up the win.
It feels great, obviously, for us to win, and not necessarily for me. This is not about, how I'm going to do or whatever. It's really about our club, and it's a good win for us as a team. Hopefully this is a start of, us playing better baseball. I liked the game tonight. We were clean. We didn't kick the ball around. I felt like we were aggressive, good at bats. I mean, I can probably answer most of your questions. Zeus, aggressive in the zone, getting after it. A lot of good things happened tonight.
Also the return, as the Blue Jays feel good about their young starting pitcher, Trey Savage, first start of the season since the World Series last year. They beat the Red Sox 3-0. Savage 5 1/3, 3 strikeouts, pitched fantastic. Here is John Schneider, skipper of the Jays, on seeing his young hurler back on the mound.
John, how did it feel to be in the dugout watching Trey on the mound again?
Really good, to be honest with you. I said that to Pete in the first inning. It's like we haven't had a whole lot of, feel. Everyone hasn't been here that was here last year, kind of at the same time. So it was nice, man. I thought he pitched really well. I thought he got better as he went on, and it was just nice to see him out there competing. Like on the mound, coming into the dugout, things like that, and. Yeah, it was great. Good first outing for him.
Pitchers duel last night between the Yankees and Rangers, as we thought it would be. Cam Schlittler outdueled Jacob deGrom. Schlittler picks up the win. It was a 3-2 final. Aaron Judge homered again, 3 straight games. He now has 12 on the season. Aaron Boone discussed the duel in Texas last night.
Aaron, what do you think of that pitcher's duel early between Schlittler and deGrom?
Yeah, good. Thought Cam was really good for us, deGrom for them. 2 big, tall, lanky, power pitching righties. It was, obviously runs were tough to come by. I actually thought we swung the bat well. I thought we hit a lot of balls on the nose, for some tough outs. Obviously a big run there, 2-out run there when Belly hits the double and Aaron's able to score. So, and then just some good things along the way. A big homer there.
All right, Stanley Cup playoffs. Let's get to that real quick. Bruins beat the Sabres 2-1, so they lead the series 3-2. Wild beat the Stars 4-2. They lead their series 3-2, and the same with the Ducks. They lead the Oilers in their best of 7, 3-2 as well. With the Oilers finally getting a big win last night, 4-1. All right, we got Sam McQuillen here from Legal Sports Report. Let's go over the very latest in sports and sports betting. And this week, unfortunately, we got a lot of scandals percolating here. So let's get to the very latest with Sam. Sam, thanks for coming on the show. This is a very big one. Texas Tech probably with their arms up. How did we know that this was going to happen? We had no clue. Now they're looking for a quarterback, I think. Brendan Sorsby is checked into a treatment program for gambling addiction, seemingly placing a lot of micro bets and doing some other things that he wasn't supposed to be doing. I don't know how this is going to work. I'm sure that the school is going to want to just figure it out and make it work, Sam. But yeah, I'm just not sure that that's going to actually happen here. I'm guessing some sort of fine, probably even furthermore a suspension, if not a ban of some kind, could be coming.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation, especially for Texas Tech when you talk about Sorsby, who was the #1 transfer portal player entering this year, projected to earn about $5 million in NIL. And then it comes out, obviously, before the season even starts, before he even takes a snap, that he's under an investigation with the NCAA for allegedly betting. You mentioned micro bets that I believe were flagged on games and when he was a member of Cincinnati football, betting on the Reds, supposedly. as well as a flurry of bets on other sports, including from when he was a member of the Indiana Hoosiers all the way in his redshirt year a couple years back. So if you're Texas Tech, you're like, why did we just pay this guy $5 million to be our starting quarterback? And it comes out now that he was gambling way before he was even at the school. Again, important to note that NCAA rules prohibit really sports betting on any kind of sport if you're a D1 athlete. That includes professional sports, so you can't go to the baseball game and place tons of micro bets. They were trying to change that rule last year, but they suddenly stopped changing it because you had all these scandals come out. So it kind of reminds me, honestly, of the Terry Rozier situation with the NBA, where he's currently under investigation for allegedly rigging bets on games. Obviously, that's different, but that happened when he was a member of the Charlotte Hornets. Then the Miami Heat traded for him, and then it came out after that he had, allegedly done this activity while he was a member of the Hornets, and the league had already investigated it. So if you're Texas Tech, you're kind of like, why did we, basically buy something that was already kind of damaged goods, or somebody knew about this? Right. So I think that will be the really interesting thing to watch here, is how that kind of changes the response or the penalty that comes down. He could lose up to his entire eligibility for betting on a sport that you play in. The minimum bet, if you bet on that, is about 50%. But if it's the team that you're on, it's way more. So this might be a case where they try to make an example of him. And of course, you'll have a lot of people talk about, he wasn't betting against himself, or he wasn't, doing anything. People make a ton of money off of betting. Why can't the players do it? So it really is a more nuanced conversation this kind of brings to light. But again, not great news if you're Texas Tech. And I imagine it's just one of those cases where it's supposedly technology working the way it's supposed to, catching bad actors. But then, if you're Texas Tech and the NCAA, you have to kind of deal with the results and the headlines as they come.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for Texas Tech hitting the portal again, I would assume, or trying to figure it out. I mean, college football season is now closer than it is, I guess, further away from that national championship coming up later this summer. They get back on the field. All right, let's get to Arkansas. Some very big results here from some of these sports betting operators. You can read about this over at LegalSportsReport.com. Sam, why is Arkansas having such big numbers here in the month of March? Is it solely surrounding college basketball, or is there more to this?
Yeah, Arkansas is one of those states that for a long time has really only had one sports betting app, and it's been a very limited market as a result. But just in March, it allowed DraftKings and FanDuel to enter the market now with 3 operators, and betting growth was up about 40% year over year in March. So some of that obviously was the NCAA tournament, more people betting, but a lot of that is because DraftKings and FanDuel were coming to town and bringing a lot of money with them. It was about $87 million was bet in the month of March, which is not only a March record, but it's a record for Arkansas in general. And it was really interesting to note too, DraftKings and FanDuel were only active for about 12 days of the entire month, and still betting growth was up about 40%. So it just kind of shows you the brand power that those apps still have, even when you talk about prediction markets and other alternative platforms that are out there. The interesting thing here, however, is the state didn't make any tax revenue from it, and that's because the operators didn't make any revenue themselves. They actually paid out $8 million more than they took in, so revenue was more than handle, and that's because a lot of that handle was just promos that they flooded the market with because of the state's structure, sign-up bonuses, free bets, just basically FanDuel and DraftKings buying market share very aggressively in Arkansas, which if you look at the online sports betting map, it was 30 out of 30 states last year in handle per capita. So basically, out of all the online sports betting states, people were betting the least there, and that's because, again, they really only had one brand. There's also some complicated rules with operators being required to remit at least 51% of their revenue to their casino partner, so that complicates the framework a little bit as well. The new deal that DraftKings and FanDuel are under is not public, but it's kind of, we can kind of look at it and say maybe they don't have that stipulation as well, which again is why there's so much more money being flooded in the market. So, the big picture is kind of it's generating more betting and it's good for the market. The bigger kind of takeaway is that the state's not making any tax revenue off of that, at least right now. So we'll see how that changes going forward, but it's definitely an interesting state to watch as we talk about online sports betting for the rest of the year.
Yeah, definitely Arkansas and maybe some of the other states in the South coming alive here. We'll see if Georgia, Alabama in the future, especially with you mentioned college football season really right around the corner again. All right, let's get to Penn and Penn making a very big move with their CEO Jay Snowden, reducing some of his pay, and we know certainly Penn has been in the news a lot over the last few years surrounding the different ways and directions they have gone as far as sports betting is concerned. And I'm guessing that's primarily the reason for some salary reduction here.
Yeah, it's definitely the reason, and you don't have to look far to figure that out. Shareholders have been kind of complaining about this the past 2 years as Penn bought Barstool Sportsbook, tried to launch that out, tried to make a big business out of that for online sports betting, failed miserably, sold it back to founder Dave Portnoy for $1, then pivoted and gave ESPN about $2 billion to use their name. Then that was a complete disaster, moved on from that, and is now doing the score bet. But in the background of all of that, you've had the investors kind of saying, why is the CEO making so much money when this has been such an abject failure? Their words, not mine. So in response, Penn had a bunch of shareholder meetings these past couple of weeks where shareholders, I think about 60% of them largely said they wanted his compensation to be more tied to the performance of the company, specifically with online sports betting. So he'll now make up to $8 million less next year, potentially. Again, more tied to the performance of the product, up from 70%, which is what it was previously. Now 80% of his pay will be tied to the actual performance. Also interesting to note that they changed the compensation comparisons for Snowden away from CEOs of companies like Roku and Electronic Arts and other media and entertainment, and more towards hospitality and gambling companies like Churchill Downs, like Hilton. So kind of reframing their strategy overall too. We've seen here as they've moved away from those online sports betting brands, they've pivoted more towards being that hospitality company. They're trying to build a casino in State College around Penn State. They've seen a lot more success with iGaming lately as well. And they've kind of told us that we basically have conceded in trying to compete with DraftKings and FanDuel with these huge brands that we've grabbed, and are now kind of fine trying to be humble and make more money out of our customers and differentiate ourselves as a brand that way, as opposed to the huge online sports betting saga, which now looks like it finally might be at an end with him taking a 30% pay cut and then pivoting more towards casino projects over the next couple of years. But Penn is still kicking, so it's always interesting to see what they're up to and what their plan is going forward.
Yeah, definitely so. And look, I think that recognizing what the landscape is, a very big part of sports betting, falling behind, kind of seems like that's what happened with Penn. Thanks again, Sam. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Craig.